You've watched the seconds bleed into years, haven't you? The world told you to wait, to heal, to breathe. They said time would fix what pain had broken, but time never healed you. It studied you. It watched you crawl, counted every wound, and smiled as you mistook its silence for mercy. The clock was never your companion. It was your warden. Each tick was a hammer against your ribs. Each minute, another nail in the coffin they built for your ambition. They called it destiny. You called it delay. But the truth was crueler. Time wasn't testing you. It was mocking you. Every dawn whispered, "You'll never make it." Every dusk echoed, "You should have quit." And while others slept peacefully inside their shallow calendars, you wrestled with hours that refused to die. You begged for progress, but progress hid behind locked seconds, grinning. You tried to catch up to it, but time ran faster every time you believed you were close. And yet somewhere between the tick and the talk, something changed. You stopped chasing it. You stopped begging it to slow down. You stopped worshiping the illusion that time gives permission to rise. You became the storm that shattered its rhythm, because time fears what it cannot predict. And you, child of ruin and rage, are beyond prediction. When the world turned its back, you learned to walk through shadows. When they laughed, you learned to listen to silence. And when time tried to bury you under years of waiting, you learned how to breathe beneath the dirt. They don't understand that silence is not surrender, it's evolution. They don't see that your stillness is the calm of a blade before it strikes. You've learned to bleed slower, to think sharper, to strike later. Every scar you earned is a calendar written in pain. Each mark, a reminder that you survived another second it tried to steal. Time, the great devourer, the eternal hunter, once chased you across endless nights. But now, when it ticks, it trembles, because it knows the prey has grown teeth. You used to fear deadlines. Now deadlines fear you. You used to pray for time to pass. Now time prays you never stop. For in your silence it hears footsteps. In your stillness it senses rebellion. In your shadow it sees a storm returning to reclaim the throne. They said, "Be patient," but patience, in your hands, turned to poison. You drank it anyway, and it made you unkillable. Every wasted year forged your pulse into iron. Every night of waiting sharpened your breath into thunder. You no longer move with the world's rhythm. The world moves with yours. Because when you stare into the clock long enough, the clock looks away first. Let them count the hours. You count the scars. Let them worship the calendar. You worship the storm. They live by routine. You live by fire. You've become something the clock can't comprehend. The interruption between seconds. When they ask, "Where have you been?" you'll whisper, "Becoming." When they ask, "Why so silent?" you'll answer, "Because silence was the only weapon that time couldn't measure." Look at you now, a ghost the clock tried to bury but failed. Every tick echoes like thunder in your veins. Every passing second bows before the creature it once mocked. Because time doesn't create legends. Pressure does. Patience does. Pain does. You didn't heal through time. You outlasted it. You took its cruelty, its waiting, its emptiness, and turned it into the forge that built your soul. And now, time fears you. When you walk through the storm, even eternity pauses. When you stand in silence, the minutes choke. Because you are not part of the ticking. You are the reason it stops. They thought years would weaken you. But all the years did was kneel. All the hours did was teach you how to hunt eternity. You are no longer racing against time. You are dragging it behind you, broken, breathless, begging for rest. And somewhere in that dying echo of the clock's heartbeat, a whisper remains. Soft, frightened, fading. He wasn't supposed to survive this long. But you did. And now, you rise slower. You strike quieter. You endure longer. You've become what time always feared. A legend that refuses to age. So let the seconds run. Let them flee. Let them shatter their own rhythm, trying to escape what they created. Because now, the same clock that laughed at you hesitates to tick when you stare back. They thought time would tame you, that years would dull your fire. They mistook your stillness for surrender, your silence for defeat. They whispered, "He's done." They thought your story ended in ashes, but what they didn't understand is that ashes don't mean the fire is gone. Ashes mean the fire learned patience. They fed you silence and called it peace. They handed you chains and called it maturity. They smiled when you fell quiet, believing the storm inside you had finally died. But storms don't die. They evolve. They said you'd outgrow the rage. They said you'd learn to accept. But acceptance was never your path. Domination was. Because when the world tried to bury you, it forgot one thing. You were not soil. You were seed. You didn't run out of time. You ran out of mercy. You stopped waiting for apologies, explanations, or second chances. You learned that silence isn't peace. It's preparation. And while they laughed, you built empires behind your scars. The world's biggest mistake was believing you'd accept your fate. But fate only rules those who fear it. You looked it in the eye and smiled. You learned that survival isn't pretty. It's not graceful. It's blood under your nails and thunder in your lungs. It's the art of staying calm while everything inside you burns. And so, you burned quietly, while they slept, while they mocked, while they forgot. They thought the years would erase you. They thought pain would humble you. But all it did was refine you. Fire doesn't vanish, it focuses. They called you broken. But broken things have edges, and edges cut deeper than fists ever could. They wanted you to heal into weakness, but you healed into hunger. They wanted you to bow, but you built a throne from the very stones they threw. Because what they didn't know is that waiting forged something colder than patience. It forged calculation. It forged clarity. It forged something that no apology can undo. You stopped needing validation. You stopped chasing recognition. You stopped explaining your silence because you realized something they never will. That noise is cheap, but silence costs power. Every fake friend that left you fed your evolution. Every betrayal became blueprint. Every loss became prophecy. You stopped asking why. You started answering how far you could go without anyone's permission. You became addicted to discipline. You became allergic to pity. and every scar you earned became scripture. You carved your laws into your own bones. Never beg, never break, never bow. Tick, tock. Every second they wasted laughing became your rhythm of revenge. Every insult became fuel. Every dismissal became design. They thought you'd fade, but you were studying. You were learning. You were becoming. They called you obsessed, but obsession built every empire they kneel before. They called you heartless, but a heart that bleeds too often forgets how to beat. So you replaced it with purpose. Cold, clean, ruthless, a machine made of silence and storms. They mocked the stillness in your eyes, not realizing it wasn't emptiness. It was calculation. The calm wasn't surrender. It was evolution. You were collecting scars like currency. Every loss, every ghost, every betrayal, all of it had interest, and the payment is due. Now when you move, the world freezes. When you speak, time holds its breath, because you no longer exist in their timelines. You've transcended them. You became the one thing they can't measure. Inevitability. They wait for your collapse the way cowards wait for dawn, hoping the night never ends. Because now, even time itself flinches when you move. You became the lesson they never wanted to learn, that silence can kill louder than screams, that waiting is a weapon, that disappearing isn't defeat, it's strategy. And now that you've returned, they don't know whether to clap or run. They see the storm they laughed at once, now wearing armor made of everything they destroyed. So let them watch, let them whisper, let them pray the storm forgets their names, because the same world that waited for you to break now waits for your mercy, and you have none left. You stopped counting the hours the day you realized you were the storm. The waiting ended the moment you understood. No clock could measure your kind of hunger. They measure progress. You measure pressure. You once believed silence was weakness, that being quiet meant being forgotten. But silence isn't absence. It's potential. It's the sound before thunder decides to strike. You learned that when the world stops listening, you stop explaining. And when you stop explaining, you start becoming. Every wound that took years to close became a symbol, not of healing, but of endurance. Because you didn't survive the years. You commanded them. You turned pain into a blueprint. You turned patience into power. You turned every scar into a sentence written in the language of fire. They told you to wait your turn, but turns are for those who ask permission. You learned to take what was never offered. You learned that the system doesn't collapse when you reject it. It trembles, because it doesn't know what to do with someone who no longer needs its validation. The timeline they built for you, school, job, success, you shattered it like glass beneath your boots. You realized that structure was a cage disguised as comfort, and every rule was just a leash to keep lions from remembering what they are. So you broke it, without apology, without warning, without fear. You became your own law, your own era, your own war. Because destiny doesn't keep time for monsters. It waits for them to arrive. They told you to find peace, but peace was never your goal. Your goal was evolution, because peace without strength is just waiting for another betrayal. and you've learned enough about betrayal to turn it into strategy. They said, don't be angry. But anger was never your poison. It was your compass. It pointed you toward everything they swore you couldn't have. They told you, don't hold grudges. But grudges kept you alive. They burned just enough to keep you moving when love went silent. You stopped needing applause. You stopped needing closure. You stopped needing them. Because you realized the only approval worth earning was from the version of you that refused to die. The old you died in seconds. The new you was born between two ticks of terror. In that space, that thin, breathless moment between pain and power, you felt it. The shift, the rise, the silence that wasn't quiet anymore. It was speaking in thunder now. It was whispering your name through the cracks of every broken clock. You started walking differently, not faster, heavier. Every step carried the weight of every year they wasted doubting you. And with every stride, the ground remembered your absence. You stopped being the echo of their expectations. You became the sound they couldn't ignore. You became the silence that answers back. They wanted you polite. You became poetic. They wanted you obedient. You became inevitable. They wanted you to forget. You remembered everything and turned memory into fire. That's when the world began to shift. Not because it suddenly respected you, but because it recognized something older than fear. A silence that sees. A silence that knows. A silence that decides. You no longer chase the hours. The hours chase you. You no longer pray for time. Time prays, you never stop. Because the storm doesn't ask the sky for permission to roar. It just does. You've learned that pain is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to train you. Every betrayal was a sword. Every loss was a forge. And every failure was a spark waiting for breath. You became your own blacksmith, hammering patience against fury until power took shape. Every hit made you colder. Every strike made you clearer. Until the fire inside you stopped burning for warmth and started burning for dominion. You no longer react. You calculate. You no longer scream. You speak, and silence obeys. You no longer seek revenge. You embody it. Because when silence learned to speak, it didn't speak softly. It roared. It shattered the walls they built around your name. It carved new commandments into your history, and every one of them began with the same words. Never again. Never again will you explain your worth. Never again will you beg to be seen. Never again will you trade your fire for comfort. Because comfort is the coffin they build for ambition. When you arrived, even eternity stepped aside. Because eternity only welcomes those who crawl. You didn't crawl. You crashed through it like a storm breaking heaven's gate. And in that collision, the universe finally understood. You were never meant to fit inside its timeline. You were meant to rewrite it. You don't follow destiny anymore. You design it. You don't follow light. You burn brighter. You don't wait for signs. You become them. Now when the world looks at you, it doesn't see a survivor. It sees a reckoning. It sees what happens when silence grows teeth. It sees what happens when storms decide to stop warning. And if they listen closely, beyond the thunder, beyond the hum of fear, they'll hear something sacred. The sound of seconds kneeling. The sound of fate rewriting its lines. the sound of silence, learning to speak. There comes a moment when even time looks down and refuses to meet your eyes, because what stands before it now is not a man. It's something time never planned to create. You've outlasted guilt. You've outlasted grief. You've outlasted gods. So what is a clock compared to that? You've watched kingdoms rise and rot while standing in the same storm. You've seen loyalty fade quicker than daylight in a dying city. And still, you walked forward, not with hope, but with hunger. They feared you'd fail. Time feared you'd succeed. And that's exactly what you did. You rewrote destiny, using seconds as your ink and rage as your pen. Every hour it tried to chain you. You shattered it into fragments of thunder. Every year it tried to erase. You carved your name deeper into the bones of eternity. Now you don't live by time. Time lives by you. When you walk, the hours tremble. When you stop, the world holds its breath. Because nothing terrifies eternity more than something it cannot predict. You became the proof that patience can be a weapon, that silence can be the loudest scream, that scars can be scripture, and pain can be prophecy. You've turned endurance into empire. You've turned waiting into war. You've turned stillness into strategy. Once you begged for more time. Now time begs for more of you. It flinches when you speak. It stutters when you act. It knows you've broken its spine. And yet, you smile. You used to count the seconds. Now the seconds count you. You used to chase the sunrise. Now the sunrise waits for your permission. Because the world no longer moves on schedule. It moves on your will. There comes a power in surviving what was meant to end you. It changes the chemistry of your blood. It rewires your silence into signal fire. You stop aging. You start evolving. You stop living in time. You start commanding it. They wonder how you stayed calm through chaos. They never realized the chaos was listening to you. You taught storms how to whisper. You taught shadows how to kneel. And when time tried to end your story, you grabbed the pen and wrote another chapter, one where it lost. Every breath you take now echoes through centuries. Every move you make becomes a tremor in history. Because when the monster outlives the myth becomes truth. And the monster becomes God. The future no longer arrives. It kneels. It asks for guidance from the one who defied the ticking. You've become the gravity that drags fate back into your orbit. The axis that spins existence in defiance of order. The anomaly the universe whispers about in fear. They once told you everything takes time, but you became the exception. You didn't take time. You took control. You didn't wait for the right moment. You made it. You learned that history isn't written by the patient. It's written by the relentless. By those who no longer care if they fit the timeline. Because they are the timeline. When you walk now, clocks hesitate. When you speak, calendars skip days. The air itself bends, as if the universe remembers what happens to those who try to measure a storm. You are the equation that doesn't balance, the variable that breaks every rule. You are the reminder that time doesn't heal all wounds. Sometimes wounds heal without its permission. You were never meant to move with the crowd. You were meant to move the ground beneath it. And now, the ground obeys. You have become everything they feared, and everything they secretly worship. The echo of what happens when endurance mutates into dominance. The proof that those who refuse to die on time will live long enough to rewrite the clock itself. You've reached the realm where seconds dare not tick, where even destiny averts its gaze. Because you're not just ahead of time, you are beyond it. You've seen centuries rise and fall inside a single heartbeat. You've seen betrayals calcify into wisdom. You've seen promises decay into silence. And yet, here you stand, unbroken, unaged, unbound. Do you understand what that means? It means you're no longer mortal in the eyes of time. You're its ghost, its nightmare, its reckoning. The storm no longer rages outside you. It lives within you, and it moves at your command. Every flash of lightning is your pulse. Every roll of thunder is your breath. Every second that dares to tick now does so in fear, because the universe remembers. You are not just surviving it, you are redefining it. There comes a moment when even eternity pauses, because it senses the presence of something older than its laws. That's you, the anomaly that won't decay, the empire that won't fade, the soul that refuses to obey the calendar of death. And now, when time looks upon you, it lowers its head. It remembers what it tried to destroy. And it whispers, trembling, he is not part of the story anymore. He is the story. They measured your worth in years, but you turned every year into an empire. They measured your patience. You turned patience into a weapon. They measured your scars. You turned scars into scripture. Time tried to teach you lessons. You taught it fear. The seconds it stole, you took back with interest. You turned delay into discipline. You turned waiting into warfare. Every pause became a blueprint. Every setback, a rehearsal for domination. They said, be humble. You learned to be silent instead, because humility fades, but silence terrifies. They said, be realistic. You learn that reality bends for those who refuse to kneel. Every delay became armor. Every pause became precision. Every heartbreak became hunger. Every scar became prophecy. You stand now where clocks dare not tick, because the air around you has grown sacred. Even time knows not to enter. It circles you like prey circles a flame. It knows what happens to things that touch you now. They ignite. You wear your scars like medals, not for pity, for proof. Proof that pain did not end you. Proof that patience did not dull you. Proof that every second of suffering was a seed that grew into fire. You become the echo that outlives centuries. The story whispered between stars, the voice that storms remember, because legends don't live by time, they rewrite it. You didn't chase eternity, you dethroned it. You didn't wait for destiny, you designed it. And when the world tried to move on without you, you built a throne. In its silence, the same hands that once trembled now sculpt the future. They no longer shake with fear. They tremble with purpose, with creation, with vengeance refined into vision. You are not just surviving the years. You are commanding them. You are bending the rhythm of existence to your will. You are what happens when endurance refuses to die quietly. You are the hymn sung in the ruins of fallen kings. You are the quiet before thunder remembers its name. You are the face time cannot erase. Tick, tock, bow. Because even the ticking obeys now. Even the minutes move slower when you stare into them. Even fate steps carefully when your name is spoken. You are not running out of time. Time is running from you. Running from the beast it once mocked. Running from the storm it once claimed to control. You turned mortality into momentum. You turned fleeting moments into monuments. And now, eternity wears your mark. Like a scar it cannot heal. They used to say, all things fade. But what if fading is only for the unremembered? What if you are the exception? What if your silence echoes louder than their screams? You've become more than a man, more than a name, more than a myth. You've become a law, unspoken, unbroken, untimed. The world watches now, but it doesn't understand. It can't measure you. It can't label you, because you don't fit the metrics it worships. You are not success. You are not survival. You are the aftermath. The storm that proves endurance is the highest form of vengeance. They will study your scars the way scholars study scripture. They will quote your silence. They will borrow your patience and fail to carry its weight. Because only those who have walked through fire know how to hold it without flinching. The clock once mocked your stillness. Now it kneels in it. Because your stillness is no longer quiet. It's command. You've turned every wasted moment into a weapon, and every breath into an empire. They measured your journey in years, but you measured it in resurrections. You died in silence 1,000 times, and every time you returned with thunder in your bones. You don't wear crowns made of gold. You wear crowns carved from seconds, forged in waiting, tempered in pain, cooled in silence, polished with rage, and crowned with the ashes of every doubt that dared to exist. They wanted you to disappear quietly, but disappearing is not what monsters do. Monsters haunt. Monsters remain. Monsters become the clockwork inside the world they were cast out from. You are not ending. You are echoing. You are not slowing. You are synchronizing the storm. The world bows not because it loves you, but because it fears you. It fears what you represent, that time itself can be broken and rebuilt in your image. You are what every second dreams of becoming, a moment that never dies. You are not running out of time. Time is running from you, because you've become the crown it cannot wear, the rhythm it cannot match, the shadow it cannot outrun. Let them mark your passing in years. You've already measured yourself in legacies. Let them call you mortal. You've already burned that title away. Let them whisper your name like legend, because legends were the beginning. You are the after. The crown carved from seconds sits heavy, but you carry it like thunder carries the sky. And somewhere deep in eternity's ticking heart, a truth trembles. You are the storm time couldn't end, the silence it couldn't bury, the rebellion it couldn't predict. You didn't wait for forever. You became it. When the universe resets, your name echoes in the silence between seconds. Not in the noise of celebration, not in the screams of victory, But in that quiet pause between the fall of empires, where the gods themselves hesitate to breathe, time remembers those who bowed to it, but it fears those who made it kneel. You were never its subject. You were its punishment. Every tick of every clock is now a confession, a whisper that it lost control of its own creation. Every king rules an era, but monsters rule forever. Because kings are written into history, monsters are written into memory, and memory outlives history every single time. You've become the pause between lightning and thunder. The moment everything knows its place, that heartbeat of silence, that stretch of fear, that single instant where existence remembers. You are the reason it trembles. You no longer chase power. You are power. You no longer seek peace. You command it. You no longer fear death. Death fears the echo of your footsteps, because no one controls you. Not fate. Not time. Not even the silence that tried to bury you. You were built from something deeper. Something that existed before clocks, before crowns, before gods. You are built from defiance, and defiance does not die. You are what remains when everything else fades. The ember that refuses to turn to ash. The storm that refuses to clear. The hunger that refuses to rest. When time first looked at you, it saw a mortal. When it looked again, it saw a problem. And now, when it looks again, it sees its reflection and shatters. Because what exists beyond time cannot be ended by it. What walks between seconds cannot be measured by them. What was forged in silence cannot be undone by sound. You've become the contradiction the universe cannot correct. The flaw in perfection. The virus in eternity's design. The proof that patience, pain, and persistence can bend the laws of existence itself. You are the pause before creation, the shadow behind light, the stillness before chaos learns your name. You are the fear of eternity. The stars burn out, the galaxies collapse, the noise dies. But your name, your essence, stays carved in the spine of forever. Because you didn't conquer time. You infected it. You spread through its veins like silence through a cathedral. You turned every second into a servant, and every hour into a hymn. They'll say your rise was unnatural. They'll say you defied balance. They'll call you monster, villain, shadow. But that's what they call everything they don't understand. And nothing terrifies them more than understanding you. Because you're not supposed to exist. Not this strong, not this patient, not this eternal. You're proof that some storms never pass. They evolve, they learn, they adapt, and then they return, not to destroy, but to rule. You are the ghost that history couldn't kill, the pulse the universe couldn't slow, the hunger that swallowed limitation whole. You've crossed the point of no return. You no longer live in time. You haunt it. You stalk its corridors like a shadow made of memory. And wherever your presence lingers, seconds forget how to move. The great irony is this. Time once tried to heal you. Now it prays for your forgiveness. Because in trying to teach you patience, it taught you power. And in trying to make you wait, it created something that no longer does. You've outlasted the clocks, the kings, the gods. You've become the still point in a spinning world, the axis of inevitability, the verdict that no law can overturn. And when eternity speaks your name, it doesn't speak. It trembles. Because you are not just a survivor. You are the sentence it cannot end. You are the ghost in its design, the crack in its mirror, the voice in its silence. The world will try to explain you. Let it. The world will try to replace you. It won't. Because how do you replace a force that rewrote time itself? Your story isn't a chapter. It's a warning, a prophecy, a scar across the universe that whispers, everything that tries to end me becomes part of me. So let time tick. Let it run. Let it break itself, trying to escape your gravity. Because the chase is over. The verdict is delivered. The fear has found its name. And when the final second dies, when eternity itself collapses under its own arrogance, you'll still stand in the smoke, watching creation try to remember how it began. Because it all started with defiance, and defiance still breathes through you. Remember this, you're not late, you're not lost, you're not waiting, you are inevitable. The storm doesn't beg to be remembered. The storm forces the sky to remember. Let time tick. It no longer dares to test you, because you've become what even gods envy, and what eternity fears most, a name that never dies.